Hi, everybody. I see Elaine is in to give the next presentation. Elaine, I'm going to give you co-host access here in just a second. So Elaine, you're in as co-host. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can get your presentation up and going. And then let me know if you have any problems doing that. Perfect. Looks good, Elaine. Thank you. And Elaine will begin right at 10 a.m. And I'll do a short introduction and some housekeeping tips and turn it over to you. And just to confirm, your last name is pronounced Gustafson. Is that correct?
That's pretty close. Yeah, Gustafson.
Gustafson, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That's okay. I'm sorry. Touching my mouse too much.
And Elaine, we are doing breakout rooms, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, just when we're ready for that, just let me know, and
Okay.
we'll do it so that both you and me are not in breakout rooms. Is that how you'd prefer it?
Yes, I would prefer to stay here, and then they can flag me if they need assistance.
Perfect. Thank
So
you.
there's a tool within the breakout room.
Excellent.
Sorry, I just lost my bar and I want to make sure I still have it. There we go.
Perfect. All right, I hear the campus bells chiming in the background, so we'll get started here in a second. All right, I have 10 o'clock on my computer, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Joe Hardenbrook from Carroll University. I'm a member of the WAL 2021 Conference Committee. I'll be your facilitator for today's session. Before we begin, just a few quick reminders. This session is being recorded and attendees will have access to this presentation and other presentations after the conference. Attendees' audio and video is muted by default. Although you can change that setting, we ask that you keep yourself muted if you don't have a question for the presenter. If you're having technical issues, please use the chat box. Just make sure and switch sending your chat from everyone to me, and I'm listed as Wisconsin Library Association. You can also hide live transcription if you want to. I believe that setting is down towards the bottom. You can also post questions into the chat box, and I'll let our presenter tell us whether they'd like to hold all questions towards the end of the presentation or answer throughout. And so now let's welcome our presenter, Elaine Gustafson.
Hey everybody, so hopefully you can hear me. I do have a timer in front of me, so if you see me looking down, I'm just looking at my time to make sure that I don't go over. So welcome today. I know it's early and we're nearing the end of the semester, so I know we're all very tired and looking forward to graduation as much as the students, I think, this year especially. But today we're going to look at adapting instruction ideas. Part of the presentation will be me talking a little bit about my process and giving you a little bit of context for the activity. You will do an activity, and then at the end we'll have a little bit of time for questions and to kind of debrief what we learned. So that's the general outline. I'll go through some more specifics in a minute. So I just want to start with the theme of today's conference, or this year's conference, risk versus reward. So we know with instruction, that one-shot lecture is fairly low risk for us as librarians, but the rewards are also low as well. So research has shown that students aren't getting as much out of those lectures as we would hope. And a lot of transferable skills aren't happening when it comes to them actually doing the assignments. So a lot of schools have and librarians have moved more towards active learning possibilities. But of course, when we talk about an active learning activity, especially when you've never tried before, there's always that risk involved that the activity won't go as you had planned, or you kind of didn't think of something that that ends up going wrong. So the activity today that we'll work on through the workshop is sort of a way to get a little bit of foresight into the activity, look at some aspects of it that have the potential for chaos or drama, so that we can sort of get in front of those before they happen as much as possible. So as I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about sources for ideas, barriers for adopting different ideas from other campuses. I'm going to go through my process, which is assess, plan, and execute. And then we'll talk a little bit about Project Cora for those of you who might not be familiar, so that if you want to search Project Cora, you do have the option to, as part of the workshop activity, that you're a little bit more familiar with the interface itself. For the workshop activity, you are going to do some individual work. So I'm going to have you look at a specific activity example. You're going to go through the assessment tool, and then you're going to work with a group, a small group, in a breakout session or a breakout room, excuse me, and kind of talk about any problems that you had, or some issues that you don't really know how to solve. And then I have 3 questions as well to kind of summarize your group's experience with the tool, as well as sort of getting your feedback on whether you would use that activity now that you've had the opportunity to really look at it closely. And then, as I said, as a full group, we'll debrief the activity. I think that within the groups, we'll have some different conversations. So it will be helpful for us to sort of share as a full group what each group found, and some interesting caveats, perhaps individual campuses face. So as we said, active learning possibilities are almost endless at this point. Here are just some examples. We have self-paced tutorials, videos, webinars and workshops that take place outside of class time, games, role-playing activities or escape rooms, discussions or in-class activities, kind of the basic go-tos. So lots of opportunities for innovation and really trying some new things. With that, there are sometimes barriers that get in the way of making those be successful in the classroom. So we're going to talk a little bit about those. In terms of inspiration, so for those who haven't really explored into activities from other campuses, these are just some opportunities or potential places you could find them. There's sort of a trade-off between sort of evidence-based practice or very well assessed activities. So when we talk about scholarship, a lot of the instruction activities were assessed very closely. So you really know what went well and what didn't go well as was the activity successful. So you get a little bit more information about student outcomes. Some of the other more informal ways to get instruction ideas like blogs, Facebook groups, listservs, maybe from other professionals, either at the same institution within your consortium, or from just Googling on the internet, other universities' websites. Those are all great ways to see what other universities are doing. And in some cases, you've got some good feedback where you're able to get back to the person who created the activity and find out some of the details in terms of student outcomes. And then now, the kind of focus of this presentation are open access databases. So we're going to talk about Quora today, but there is also Primo, which is ACRL's version, as well as Merlat, which is more of a kind of cross-disciplinary open access search tool. So it has both library stuff as well as things from multiple disciplines. So there's probably more out there than just that, but those are kind of the three that I use or that I'm aware of. So with these, you have the nice opportunity to see typically a lesson plan. You've got some learning objects. So whether it's a worksheet, a tutorial, a link to a LibGuide, something like that, it's all kind of out there for you to see. Oftentimes they provide feedback on the activity. So Quora provides sort of a section for problems or pitfalls where the author can give you some tips on things that sometimes go wrong. So you have a little bit of a foresight into what could possibly happen in the session for an activity you haven't tried yet. So I really like that. I think that's a great feature. So as you know, when we're adapting activities from other places, sometimes things go great, sometimes things go okay, or maybe a little frustrating. And then of course, sometimes things go horribly wrong. We've all had our instruction failures. So this process that we're going to talk about next is sort of a way to help minimize or, as I said, kind of predict what could go wrong in the session and really think about how much time you want to invest in adapting to a new idea. So of course, when we adapt the idea, there is an investment of time and resources. And sometimes the trade-off between what's gained from trying this new activity might not be worth the resources that you're going to need to invest to make it work on your campus. So that's sort of the main conversation we're having here today is making that decision in the best way you possibly can. So some barriers to adaptation, some things that I have found personally, or I've read in the literature about problems with trying new instruction ideas. Of course, we have instructor buy-in. So if the instructor is used to doing library instruction in their course a certain way, they may not be open to new ideas, especially if it requires them to maybe change the scheduling of the course or how the course is sequenced or the assignments that are used. So that can be a huge barrier to adapting a new idea. You also have sort of how the instructor plays a role. So whether it's simply making sure that students are on task or taking the library session seriously to, maybe there's something that they have to distribute ahead of time. And without their cooperation, the activity won't be successful. So there's quite a few different factors and layers there. Campus specific differences. So often we see this with videos or tutorials. where the language that's used on your campus might vary slightly from what's used on their campus. So for example, there's many different names for databases. You might call them library databases, research databases, academic databases. I've seen all kinds of different names for that, as well as search tools. So your discovery layer often has a name that's specific to your campus. So if you are using a video or a tutorial that refers to that discovery tool from a different name, that could be confusing for students. So some things to think about. As well as a lot of campuses have either curriculum-wide, so university-wide, learning outcomes related to information literacy or information use, as well as your library might also have learning outcomes. So what you kind of require or emphasize at your campus might be a little bit different from what another campus does. So you'll look at that as you're looking at the activity that you choose. Resource gaps, again, that's a huge one. So campuses that have really large tech resources or departments that create instructional videos. I know on my campus, I am a one-stop shop. So I create, design, and implement all instruction. So if it's not something that I can do myself, then in most cases, I won't be able to do it. So thinking about what's available on your campus and what you could use potentially that may be outside of your library. So collaborating with IT or other groups within your university might give you access to more resources than you have. So thinking kind of creatively about that issue. Of course, logistical challenges is kind of the basics of, if this course is always offered in 3 50-minute sessions every week and you want to do an activity that's going to take an hour and a half, sometimes the instructor can be flexible with making that happen, but oftentimes you're sort of limited to those logistical challenges. Other issues might be the format of the course. So this course is always offered online. So how do you convert something that's meant for a face-to-face setting to something that will work really well online? So sometimes there's other technologies or online tools that are that you can adapt or use. So thinking about those kinds of challenges, sort of being limited by what is possible. So how do we overcome these barriers? Obviously, we're able to do this all the time, but I find that having a very organized process in how I approach each activity helps me sort of identify, as I mentioned before, is this something that's going to be too much work for what I'm going to benefit from, or is this reasonable for the resources and the logistics that I have to work with? So I sort of have a 3-step process, and today we're going to go through sort of the first step and a half or so of that process. So let me explain it, and then I think that'll make more sense. So of course, the first thing we need to do is identify those barriers. So I have a chart that we're going to go through with the activity. So you basically want to get down and dirty with comparing the idea versus the course reality. So you'll look at each of the 4 areas that I just mentioned in terms of barrier categories and identify potential problems. So doing a quick scan of the activity, the instructions, what's provided, what is going to need to change, or what is going to potentially cause a problem in making this activity successful on your campus. The next step, of course, we want to brainstorm solutions. So in some cases, you can overcome those barriers with a little bit of creativity. So sometimes you can discuss with peers or talk to the instructor. Maybe they have a little bit of flexibility in how the course is offered or what the assignment requirements are. So kind of, as I said, which professors and instructors are more likely to be flexible and open to new ideas, and those which are probably not going to really be interested in making those kinds of changes. As much as possible, you want to kind of decide what realistic compromises are possible. And then, as I said, make that decision whether you want to sort of go forward and adapt the activity and give it a try, or maybe put the brakes on and decide right now is not a good time. Maybe this particular course that I'm thinking of using this in isn't a good course to try it with, and putting it on the shelf, as I said, and trying something different. So to execute our solutions, of course, Creating to-do lists. Oftentimes there's a set list of tasks that need to be completed. As I said, depending on how your instruction department is organized, you might have access to others who can help you with that, either technology-wise or just staffing-wise. So those project management skills, assigning tasks to other people, recruiting help if needed. So maybe your idea requires more than one library staff person to be available for that class session. So maybe you need to recruit another librarian to attend the course session with you, or help with something else related to that idea. So recruiting help within your department so that the activity can be successful. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about Project Cora. It's been around for a while, so I know most of you have at least heard of it, and maybe a good portion of you have used it before. So it is a searchable database of what they call assignments. Assignment is a very broad term though. So you'll find things from lesson plans to syllabi to a wide variety of different things. For the purposes of this workshop, I'm just asking you to find something specific to instruction. So something with a lesson plan and maybe a handout or some slides. Everything in Project Cora is Creative Commons licensed, so you can reuse it as long as you give credit to the original author. Project Cora has a nice feature where anyone can create a profile and add their own ideas or adapt ideas. So the example idea that I chose is a few years old, so it does have an adaptation available, as well as a couple of comments from other librarians. So you get to kind of see how it worked on different campuses, what went well, what didn't go well, as well as how it was adapted for a different type of course. So I find that really helpful in using Project Cora. So the search interface, just for those who decide they would like to jump in and use Project Cora today. So there's an assignments advanced search, which I have linked on the page I will share in a minute here. But you can search by information literacy concepts. They include both the framework concepts as well as the old model that was pre-2015. So depending on where your campus is with the framework, or if you just find it easier to search by those concepts, most will be labeled with both frameworks. So either one will work. You have resources organized by discipline. So if it's a business course, if it's an art course, etc. I would say the majority of the activities are multidisciplinary. So you can use them for a wide variety of different courses. Ability level has to do with education. So undergraduates, high school, faculty, graduate students, etc. So there's a bunch of different categories there. So you can sort of narrow down what level the students are at when you're coming into the class. Of course, individual versus groups. So is this a group activity or is something you could do one-on-one with the student? Most of the activities are going to be group activities. You can search by keyword, but I find that unless you're looking for something very specific, the keyword search is only as good as you know what the author would call something. So I usually start with the filters, and then if that doesn't work, I'll try the keyword search as well. We do have one question in the chat. I do ask that you hold it till the end. I am almost done with my part of the spiel, so I'm just going to introduce the workshop itself. So we have two options here. As I said, if you are a Cora beginner and the thought of having to come up with an activity and finding an activity in 5 minutes is just not what you want to deal with today, I totally get that. I did pick out a sample activity. It's just a simple discussion for a second semester writing course. So what most first year students take, lots of us do instruction in. The assignment that students are, that the activity is geared towards is an annotated bib. So I figured that was a pretty generic activity. It's a couple years old, as I said, so there's some more feedback from other campuses and other librarians on there, which I wanted to kind of give you the opportunity to see a full record. And then if you want to, I give you the option, you have 5 minutes to search Cora. If you want to find your own activity, you're welcome to do so. Because the abstract has been out for a while, over a year, You might have already played in Cora and found something you want to use. That's totally fine as well. So I'll leave that up to you to decide what you want to do. So activity timeline. So I'm going to stop sharing in a minute, but you're going to have 10 minutes to do both the search and the chart. So at the 5-minute point, we will let you know via chat that, okay, if you are searching, you need to move on to completing the chart so that everybody has a chance to do that. We're going to break out into rooms. You'll have about 7 minutes to discuss. I've got a set of questions as well to just kind of get a sense of how your group did with the activity, how helpful you found it, and whether you would use the activity now that you've sort of dissected it a little bit more. And then of course, we're going to come back and reveal what your groups found as a large group. And while you're in your groups, I do ask that you assign somebody as a note taker and spokesperson for your group, just so we can be a little bit more organized with sharing. So I do have a note-taking page in Google Docs that you can use to scribble some notes on, and then we'll use those questions to organize our discussion. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. Because I want to put the address of the page in the chat. And I see someone already was very lovely and put in a link to Project Cora. So I just created a website. I do have a WordPress website. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. So that is where the activity is located. You can go ahead and open that. At the very top of the page, you will see a link to the sample activity I chose, as well as the same link that Valerie shared with us to search Project Cora. So it's 10:22 now. We've got 5 minutes. So at 10:27, I'm going to warn you again that we're going to move on to the next thing. So if you do decide to search, that is going to be up. So go ahead and take a look at that. Was anybody not able to make it there? If so, just let me know in the chat. So we've got about a minute left of searching time. So if you haven't found something yet, take a look at what you've looked at so far and see if one of those is something you can choose. Okay, so I'm going to ask that if you are searching that you stop at this point. If you weren't able to find anything, that's okay. That's why we have the sample activity that I picked out just in case. So I'm going to share my screen again here and just show you how to get at the chart. So here we are on the website itself. The next thing we're going to do is look at the Google Sheet. So you can see there's a graphic with instructions, but basically you're going to click on the link and then it will take you to a template of the activity. You just need to go to the very top and download a copy. So if you have your pop-up blocker on, you're not seeing this download option here, that's what you're looking for. In the activity itself, I'm asking you to complete columns B, C, which is kind of a combined column, this yellow section, as well as the purple section. So for the activity, you'll start at the top with a description. So just a short, less than 100 words of what the activity is, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're working with. And then each of the sections has instructions on the left-hand side for things to consider. They are not an exclusive or all-inclusive list, but just some things that I have found that tend to be barriers. And then once you've sort of identified the barriers in your activity, in the purple column, you will start to problem solve or think about possible solutions. And then within each box, you will include a time estimate. So as part of this process, we want to think about how long is this going to take and do I have the time necessary to do it well? So at the end of, once you've completed all the boxes, you'll have at the very bottom a kind of total time for adaptation. And you can use that to decide whether or not you want to use that activity or not. So we've got 5 minutes starting right now. So right around 10:36, again, we're not kind of deep diving into the activity. We're just kind of looking for problems as you scan through the item information. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here unless we have questions. We're getting close to halfway, so hopefully you have made it through some of those yellow boxes and are starting to think about what you might want to put in the purple boxes. Okay, we're at our 30 seconds to 1 minute warning. So again, you might not have been able to get through the whole chart, but at least you take a look at all the sections and read through all the instructions. Okay, so I am going to have to ask you to stop where you are because I want to give the groups enough time to debrief at the end. We've got a fairly large group here. So we'll have quite a few groups that are participating. For the next section, I'm going to just screen share again like I did the last time, and we'll just go through the next set of instructions here. So again, we're moving on to the discussion group prompts. Again, we have a Google Doc, so we're just going to click on the link. Here is your page. To save a copy of this, it looks like there's quite a few already in here, so that's great. You're going to go ahead and click on the file and then download, and you can download it in any format you want. So Word, if you just want to use PDF, if you want to use a plain text file, whatever works for you. In just a minute, our moderator is going to assign you to a breakout room. So those are the questions that you will be going through with your group. So it looks like we've got about maybe six or 7 minutes. So that's going to be about 10:45, we'll say 10:44, to go through those 3 questions with your group. So feel free to assign those breakout rooms whenever you are ready. You will see a pop-out that says accept. So please go ahead and, excuse me, it says yes. So you'll see, do you want to join a breakout room? Press yes, and then you should be able to join.
Elaine, how many people would you like in a breakout room ideally?
Looks like we're down to 21. Let's do 4 rooms.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
I'll get that done right now.
No, it doesn't look like anybody got a pop-up yet because they're all still here.
I'm working on it.
That's okay.
That's okay.
We started out with 48. I got a little worried, but yeah, so in the breakout room, you'll be discussing the questions on the form. So there's 3 questions to go through with your group. One of you will be the note taker and take down your group's discussion. And then at the end, we'll do a group share. Oh, there we go.
Should be going right now. Sorry, it took a little bit longer than I thought.
No, that's okay.
When you don't,
Dan, did you see a pop-up?
I didn't add myself to the group, but I can see in progress most people have. Everybody.
There we go. Okay.
Yep.
It's very scary because I don't know what they're doing.
I know.
It's much different when they're in person and you can kind of walk around and.
Right. So have you done most of your instruction at Concordia online this year, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a mix,
Mhm.
at least when I'm the presenter. So if it's my Zoom account, then I can see into the breakout room. But if I'm not, I can't. Oh, you know what? Here, I can see them now that they're assigned. Usually with students, I will pop in, so I will kind of make sure we're on topic and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. For the most part, they're pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had really any issues. But for these
Good.
guys, I will just let them go. I'll probably send a chat message, or you might have to send it to all the groups, and
Sure.
I usually give them about a 1-minute warning.
Okay.
So at like in 2 or 3 minutes.
Sounds good.
Just to let them know like they need to wrap it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I do have the ability to broadcast a message to all.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I don't see it, but I think
yeah, just let me know when you want me to do that, and I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, we'll give them another minute or so.
Mm-hmm. Because I think there's a little bit of difference between what the host can do versus co-host and things like that.
Yeah, I usually have the teacher, so if I'm in the instructor's room, they will make me co-host and take them. It's that you can only have one at a time. That's like the primary. So they have to remove themselves as a host
Okay.
in order to give me all the privileges, basically. Okay, so you can go ahead and just send them a kind of a 1 minute warning.
1 minute warning. Okay. All right, I sent that message.
Yeah, I can see it up at the top at mine too, which is nice. And then we'll just go ahead and pull them automatically from all the rooms.
Are you ready for me to close all the rooms?
Give them till 10:44.
10:44.
Close
okay.
all the rooms. Yeah.
Thank you.
They'll see like a flashing thing that counts down. And they can either leave immediately or wait till they run out of time. So.
Okay. It's 10:44 on my computer, so I'm going to go ahead and hit close.
Okay, go ahead. There you go.
So yeah, I see the countdown going. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself again.
Oh, sure, that's fine. Okay, so welcome back. Like I said, I haven't been able to see what you've been doing, so hopefully you found the activity helpful. So we're gonna just go ahead, and there were 4 rooms. I don't know if you guys remember which room you were in, but breakout room 1, if you want to get started. I don't know who is your spokesperson.
I think we were breakout group 1, but if somebody thinks that I'm wrong, that's fine. I took notes, although we didn't have we obviously didn't have a ton of time.
Sure.
One person said that they did a database speed dating activity where students filled things in about the database and then filled out a crap form. And another person looked at a project where students would find popular science sources and analyze those to see if they feel like those sources are accurate in representing the information. And that person said that there would be 10-minute presentations associated with that, which she thought didn't seem like a something that would actually probably happen in this setting. So.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
And Elaine, we are 1 minute over, so we do need to wrap up soon here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So I apologize. I thought we had a few more minutes. So for hopefully you found the activities helpful. Through the activity, I hope that you sort of realize that in terms of logistics, sometimes we get excited about activities or options, but then when we start to look at kind of the nitty gritty of what's really happening, sometimes we realize that for what we have available, what time we have, what it's going to take, that the activity is really not realistic for what we want to do, and vice versa. So hopefully you found this helpful. Again, I apologize that we ran out of time. If you do want to email me your notes, if you have any written down, that would be great. Or if you want to send me your form or any feedback you have, this is just a form that I use. So you guys are kind of my first audience testing it. So if you have feedback for sections or content that I should be adding or thinking about, I would love to hear from you. So I will go ahead and put my email here in the chat. You can just send it to me at work. And let me know what your thoughts were.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the conference.